This place is
Interstellar Maid
enchanting, isn't it?
service.
Yes, but
One
you're the true
boost
magic
into my
here.
lap.
Keep talking like
Endless
that.
desire. The unexpected arrival. Darian Cross slumped against his apartment door, dropping his datapad on the cluttered table with a groan. 3 months of 16-hour shifts debugging quantum navigation systems had left him hollow, existing solely on synthetic coffee and automated meal packets. His apartment on Aurora Gateway Station reflected his neglect. Unwashed dishes piled in the sink, clothes scattered across furniture, dust coating every surface. He'd finally surrendered and contacted elite cosmic domestics, expecting some efficient robot or stern professional to restore order. The door chime sang its melodic note precisely at 7. Darian ran fingers through his disheveled dark hair and opened the door, then forgot how to breathe. She stood in the corridor bathed in soft hallway lighting, and she was absolutely breathtaking. Her skin held the luminous quality of moonlight on water, a delicate silver blue that seemed to shimmer with its own inner radiance. Hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves that shifted through shades of deep violet to soft rose, like watching a nebula in motion. Her eyes were the most striking feature, large and expressive, colored a rich violet with flecks that actually sparkled like distant stars. "Good evening," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that made her name sound like poetry. "I'm Zephyrah Selene from Elite Cosmic Domestics. You requested a full apartment restoration?" She wore the agency's signature uniform, a sleek black bodysuit with silver accents that hugged her curves, complemented by a short pleated skirt and form-fitting gloves. She carried an elegant case of cleaning implements that hummed with advanced technology. Darian finally found his voice. "Yes, please come in." He stepped aside, suddenly acutely aware of how terrible his living space looked. Zephyrah glided past him, her movements possessing an otherworldly grace. She set down her equipment case and surveyed the chaos with those magnificent eyes, but her expression held no judgment, only warm understanding. "You work in the tech sector?" she asked, noting the multiple holographic displays still projecting code. "Navigation systems analyst," Darian managed, trying not to stare as she began unpacking sleek chrome devices. "Sorry about the mess. It's been intense lately." "That's exactly why I'm here." She offered him a smile that made his pulse quicken. "Why don't you relax? Let me handle everything." Darian retreated to his desk, pretending to work while watching her transform his apartment with mesmerizing efficiency and grace beyond anything he had imagined. Growing magnetism. Zephyrah returned 3 times that week, and Darian found himself inventing reasons to be home during her scheduled visits. He'd never been one for small talk, but with her, conversation flowed effortlessly. While she calibrated his environmental systems, she told him about Andara's crystal moons, where she'd grown up, where cities were carved from singing stone that resonated with harmonies during moonrise. "The architecture responds to emotion," she explained, gracefully dusting his collection of old Earth novels. "When you're happy, the walls glow warmer. When you're sad, they emit comforting tones." "Sounds incredible," Darian said, watching her fingers trace the book spines with genuine appreciation. "Why did you leave?" Something flickered in those violet eyes, a shadow of old pain. "I wanted to see the universe beyond my moon. My family didn't understand." She turned to him with a soft smile. "But I don't regret it. Every new place teaches me something." "What has Aurora Station taught you?" he asked, leaning forward. "That loneliness exists even in crowded spaces," she replied quietly, her gaze holding his, "and that some people shine brighter than they realize." Heat crept up Darian's neck. He changed the subject, but her words lingered in his mind long after she left. By her 5th visit, the apartment was immaculate, yet Darian couldn't bring himself to cancel her services. He scheduled bi-weekly cleanings despite barely creating any mess.
Zafira never commented on how little there was to do, instead spending more time talking with him over tea he'd started preparing for her arrival. "You should try Lunari sweet cakes," she said one evening, perched on his kitchen counter while he worked nearby. Her hair had shifted to soft amber tones, responding to her relaxed mood. "They dissolve on your tongue like starlight." "Maybe you could show me where to find them," Darian suggested, his heart hammering at his own boldness. Zafira's eyes brightened, those stellar flecks dancing. "Are you asking me out, Darian Cross?" "I might be," admitted Darian, meeting her gaze. "If you'd want to." "I've wanted to for weeks," she confessed, and the warmth in her voice sent electricity through him. Their first outing to the station's celestial market felt less like a date and more like coming home. They wandered through stalls selling goods from 1,000 worlds, sampling exotic foods and laughing at their reactions to particularly strange flavors. When Zafira slipped her hand into his while navigating the crowd, Darian's entire universe shifted into perfect alignment.
The fateful stumble. 2 months into their deepening connection, Zafira still officially came as his domestic service provider, though they both knew it was merely an excuse to see each other. Their relationship existed in a beautiful limbo, too intimate for professional, too cautious for lovers, hovering in that electric space of unspoken desire. One evening, Darian worked late on a critical project, while Zafira performed what had become a ritual of organizing his already organized apartment. She'd changed from her uniform into casual clothing, a flowing top in deep emerald that complemented her luminous skin, and comfortable fitted pants that accentuated her graceful form. "You're working too hard again," she chided gently, reaching up to adjust his environmental air purifier mounted on the high wall. Her anti-gravity stabilizer device hummed softly, keeping her cleaning tools suspended nearby. "Says the woman who works 2 jobs, Darian replied, glancing up from his holographic display. She'd recently started studying astrobotanical design in her spare time, pursuing a dream she'd mentioned in their late-night conversations. "That's different. One of my jobs involves spending time with you." She smiled over her shoulder, that playful look that always made his breath catch. Darian stood, stretching cramped muscles, and walked toward the kitchen for water. As he passed behind her, the anti-gravity device suddenly sputtered, a malfunction in its stabilization field. The tools it supported dropped with a clatter, startling Zafira. She reached out instinctively to catch them, lost her balance on the step stool, and tumbled backward with a surprised gasp. Darian's reflexes kicked in. He caught her, arms wrapping around her waist as she fell into him. The momentum sent them both stumbling backward against the wall. Time seemed to crystallize into that single perfect moment. Her back pressed against his chest, his hands splayed across her stomach, both breathing hard from surprise. Zafira turned in his arms, and suddenly they were face to face, mere inches apart. Her hair had shifted to deep crimson, a color she'd learned meant intense emotion. Those violet eyes searched his, wide and questioning, her lips slightly parted. "Darian," she whispered, his name a prayer and a question. He couldn't hold back anymore. Months of restraint, weeks of wanting, all shattered in an instant. He cupped her face and kissed her. She melted against him with a soft sound of surrender, her arms winding around his neck. The kiss started tender, almost hesitant, then ignited into desperate passion. Her fingers tangled in his hair, his hands explored the curve of her back, pulling her closer. She tasted like the starfruit tea she loved, sweet and exotic and absolutely intoxicating. Confession and connection. They broke apart, breathless and trembling, foreheads pressed together. Zafira's hair blazed with shifting colors, crimson melting into gold, then deep rose, a kaleidoscope of emotion she couldn't control.
Her chest rose and fell rapidly against his, and Darian could feel his own heart thundering so hard he was certain she could hear it. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he confessed, his voice rough with emotion. His hands still rested on her waist, unable to let go, terrified this moment might dissolve like a dream. "Since when?" she asked softly, her violet eyes searching his face with an intensity that made him feel completely exposed and entirely safe all at once. "Since the first time you smiled at me," Darian admitted. "Since you talked about singing stones and made my disaster of an apartment feel like a home just by being in it. Since I realized I was scheduling cleanings I didn't need because I couldn't stand the days without seeing you." Zephyra laughed, a musical sound filled with joy and relief. "I thought I was the only one. Do you know how many times I redid perfectly clean sections just to stay longer?" Her fingers traced along his jaw, the touch sending shivers through him. "Darian, I've never felt this way about anyone. On Andara, connections are supposed to form slowly, properly, through family introduction and formal courtship. But you walked into my heart without permission and made yourself home there." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring every sensation, the silk of her hair between his fingers, the warmth of her luminous skin, the way she sighed against his mouth. She responded with equal tenderness, her hands sliding beneath his shirt to trace patterns across his back that made him shudder. "Stay tonight," he whispered against her lips. "Not as my domestic service, not as anything but what we really are." "And what are we?" she asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. "Everything," he answered simply. They moved to his bedroom, shedding professional pretenses along with their clothing. Every touch became a revelation, the way she gasped when he kissed the curve of her neck, how her skin seemed to glow brighter beneath his caresses, the musical sounds she made when his hands explored her body with reverent attention. She was patient and passionate, guiding him through the unfamiliar terrain of Lunari intimacy, showing him how her people expressed love through synchronized breathing, through harmonized heartbeats. Their lovemaking was tender and fierce by turns, a conversation conducted in sighs and whispers and the language of intertwined bodies. When they finally lay tangled together in the aftermath, her hair had settled into a soft silver white that she explained meant complete contentment. "I love you," Darian said into the comfortable silence, the words he'd been holding back for weeks finally free. Zephyra lifted her head from his chest, those stellar eyes shining. "I love you too, completely, impossibly, wonderfully." They talked until dawn painted the viewport in shades of rose and gold, sharing dreams and fears and plans for a future neither had dared imagine alone. New beginnings. 6 months later, Darian stood in their apartment, no longer his but theirs, watching Zephyra arrange luminous Andaran crystal flowers in a vase she'd designed herself. She'd resigned from elite cosmic domestics 3 weeks after their first night together, finally pursuing her passion for astrobotanical design full-time. Her creations had quickly gained recognition throughout Aurora Station. Her ability to blend plants from different worlds into harmonious living art was unprecedented. The apartment had transformed into a reflection of their merged lives. Lunari singing stones hummed softly in corners, responding to their moods with gentle melodies. Earth plants grew alongside Andaran crystal blooms in her custom-designed planters. Holographic photos covered the walls, images of them at the Celestial Market, hiking in the station's biodome, visiting her family on Andara during the Festival of Twin Moons. "What are you thinking about?" Zephyra asked, setting down her work and crossing to where he stood by the viewport. She wore one of his old shirts, her hair loose and shifting through peaceful blues and greens. "How one malfunction changed everything," Darian replied, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "How the worst timing became the best timing." She leaned back against him, lacing their fingers together. "The universe has interesting ways of pushing people together." "Speaking of which," Darian said, his heart suddenly racing with nervous excitement, He turned her to face him, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside rested a ring he'd commissioned, a band of earth platinum intertwined with Andorran's singing crystal that would resonate with her heartbeat. I know we come from different worlds, different cultures, different biology even, but I want to spend every moment I have learning more about yours while sharing mine. Zephyrah Solane, will you marry me? Her hair exploded into brilliant gold, tears streaming down her luminous cheeks as she nodded emphatically. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it immediately began humming a soft harmony that matched the rhythm of her heart. She pulled him into a kiss that tasted like joy and promise and forever. Later, wrapped together on their balcony watching transport ships streak toward distant stars, Zephyrah traced lazy patterns on his chest. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't fallen that day? We would have found another way, Darian said with certainty. Some connections are inevitable. The universe just gave us a little push. She smiled against his shoulder. A perfect little oops that led to everything. As Aurora Station rotated slowly through the cosmos, they held each other close, two souls from different worlds who'd discovered that home wasn't a place, it was whoever made your heart sing. Lessons from the stars. True love transcends all boundaries, whether species, culture, or origin. When two hearts recognize each other, the universe conspires to bring them together. Sometimes the greatest blessings arrive disguised as accidents. What seems like a stumble or mistake may be destiny's gentle push towards exactly where you're meant to be. Loneliness ends not when we find someone, but when we find the courage to be vulnerable. Darian and Zephyrah's love bloomed because they dared to show their authentic selves.